It was a war that pushed aviation to the absolute limit, a ruthless battle for supremacy in the skies above Europe and the Pacific. But amidst the savage dogfights and bombing raids, one question burned in the minds of pilots and engineers alike. Who built the fastest fighter of them all? This is the story of the 8 most blistering fast propeller-driven aircraft of World War II, Faust, and the fearless aces who flew them. These were no mere prototypes or test machines. These were cutting-edge weapons of war, forged in the crucible of combat. Fighters that tore across the sky in a blur of pistons and adrenaline, chasing destiny at the red line. From the sleek and nimble Spitfires that saved Britain to the ultra-rare German rockets with exotic engines, we'll uncover the secrets behind the most powerful piston engines ever built. Discover the untold stories of the madman test pilots who pushed these planes to the ragged edge of physics, and reveal the shocking truth of which country's technology ultimately reigned supreme. Strap in and brace yourself, because you've never seen World War II quite like this before. This is the white-knuckled tale of the fastest guns in the sky and the men who dared to fly them. In the desperate years of World War II, speed meant everything. A few extra miles per hour could make the difference between life and death, victory and defeat. Every nation threw vast resources into the race for the fastest fighters. Pilots demanded them. Generals staked their strategies on them. Engineers slaved to wring out one more ounce of power, because this was a war where split-second timing was everything. Bombers had to be intercepted before they reached their targets. Recon planes had to outrun enemy patrols. And in the vicious knife fights of aerial combat, the pilot who struck first usually won. Fractions of a second could change the fate of nations. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Allied fighters had to catch German jets before they wreaked havoc. Axis planes needed the speed to ambush lumbering B-17 formations. For the men who flew these missions, finding more speed became an obsession. They knew their lives depended on it. So join us as we count down the 8 hottest props of the war and discover the untold stories behind them. You'll be shocked at how far these nations went in their need for speed, and astounded at the performance they achieved. Hold on tight, because we're diving deep into the most pivotal dogfights of the war and coming out with answers 80 years in the making. Buckle up and get ready. We're about to chase down the speed demons of World War II and find out once and for all who was the king of the skies. As the war raged on, the speed race became a global arms race. Every major power had its own approach to building the fastest fighter, and they were all desperate to steal each other's secrets. The British were masters of sleek aerodynamics. They refined the elliptical wings and graceful lines of the legendary Spitfire until it could dance circles around early German designs. Supermarines engineers slaved to streamline every surface, squeezing out speed through elegant design. But the Germans had a different tactic: raw power. Focke-Wulf's beastly BMW engines gave their FW-190 seconds a staggering rate of climb. The inline Daimler-Benz motors in the Messerschmitt Bf-109 packed a high-altitude punch. German engineers pushed piston technology to the absolute limit in their quest for superior speed. Meanwhile, the Americans brought mass production to the fight. North Americans' P-51 Mustang combined British refinement with Detroit muscle, rolling off assembly lines in huge numbers. Republic's P-47 Thunderbolt welded heavy armor to the biggest radial engine ever built, creating a juggernaut that could outrun anything at high altitude. The Japanese took a different approach, emphasizing unrivaled maneuverability with nimble designs like the Zero and Oscar. But as the war ground on, even Japan was forced to prioritize speed over agility. These competing design philosophies sparked a fierce industrial espionage campaign. Spies and commandos risked everything to steal engine blueprints and wind tunnel data. Each new raid and defection pushed the technology faster. In the end, the speed achievements of World War II became an international phenomenon, Minurselv, a mixing of ideas and innovations as frantic as the dogfights themselves. In the later years of the war, the need for speed pushed aircraft designers to the ragged edge of possibility. Each country rolled out revolutionary prototypes, desperate to find an advantage. And the most extreme creations of all came from the drawing boards of Nazi Germany. Meet the Dornier Do 335 Pfeil, the bizarre push-pull fighter with not one but two massive engines. One prop at the nose, another at the tail, generating an astounding 474 miles per hour. The Do 335 looked like something from a science fiction comic, but it flew. Oh, did it fly! Only a madman would strap himself between two screaming Daimler-Benz engines. The slightest mistake could snap the Do 335's lightweight airframe like a toothpick. But that's exactly what Germany's daredevil test pilots did, coaxing this mechanical monster to world record speeds, all in the fading hopes that radical breakthroughs could turn the tide of war. The Allies had their speed machines too, planes like the twin Mustang P-82 and the XP-47J, a juiced-up Thunderbolt prototype that took the big radial concept to its most extreme conclusion. But nothing could match the sheer shock value of late-war German designs. Even more outrageous than the Do 335 was the Blohm & Voss BV 155 7DUA, a high-altitude interceptor with a longer wingspan than a modern-day 737. Or the Focke-Wulf-Tar 152, an enlarged FW-190 with high-altitude supercharging that some consider the ultimate Luftwaffe fighter. These were the X-planes of their day, each one an experiment in harnessing piston power for maximum velocity. Built in an era before computer modeling or high-tech materials, sketched out on paper by slide rule-wielding engineers in a country crumbling under bomber onslaught. It's a miracle any of them flew at all. But for all the talk of prototypes and breakthroughs, it was in the flak-torn skies over Europe and the Pacific where the fastest fighters really proved their worth. Because this was a war where a few extra miles per hour could mean the difference between a hero's welcome and a lonely death far from home. Take the Grumman F-8F Bearcat, a plane so fast it missed the war. The Bearcat was designed as a lightweight interceptor that could take off from the Navy's smallest escort carriers. But by the time it entered service in 1945, Japan was already in ruins. In test flights, the Bearcat climbed like a homesick angel, hitting 10,000 feet in just 94 seconds. But it never fired a shot in anger. Contrast that with the Hawker Tempest, a rugged British bruiser that sacrificed a few miles per hour for the sheer stopping power of 4 20mm cannons. Tempest pilots loved the plane's rock-solid reliability and blistering acceleration at low altitude. They used it to deadly effect, shooting down more than 800 of Hitler's V-1 buzz bombs as the robot attackers droned towards London. Then there was the Focke-Wulf-Tar 152H, a high-altitude monster that terrorized American bomber formations in the waning months of the war. Kurt Tank's ultimate evolution of the FW-190 series could hit 469 miles per hour thanks to a giant turbocharger and supercharger, an oxygen system, and pressurized cockpit for its pilot. It was an astonishing achievement for a piston-engined aircraft, but one that came too late to change the course of the war. Each of these fighters has a story that could fill its own documentary. Tales of desperate chases over the English Channel, of lone German aces fighting to the last round, of Japanese Zeros in flaming kamikaze dives and American Mustangs soaring high over the Pacific. But through it all, one common thread emerges: the relentless pursuit of speed as the ultimate edge in combat. Now, at last, it's time to crown a champion. Coming up, the final ranking of the 8 fastest piston-engine fighters of World War II. The ones that pushed the limits, that gave their pilots a fighting chance, that redefined what was possible in the air. Stick around. The answers are a few miles per hour away. And there you have it, the 8 fastest propeller-driven fighters of World War II, backed by the most authoritative speed trials and combat reports we could uncover. Pilots who flew these aircraft are gone now, but their stories live on in the screaming roar of a Merlin engine, in the blinding blur of a piston fighter at full throttle. The P-51H Mustang, a quantum leap over the already outstanding P-51D, 487 miles per hour, and unrivaled maneuverability, courtesy of North America's tireless engineers. The Dornier Do 335, a revelation from the dark imagination of the Luftwaffe, with a push-pull twin-engine configuration that rewrote the rules of aerodynamics. The Republic P-47M, a brute in a dapper blue suit that could chase down V-2 rockets and hold its own against the first German jets. Names that echo down the decades, names that still quicken the pulse of anyone who's felt the kick of raw piston power. Spitfire, Thunderbolt, Sturmovik. These were more than just planes or even weapons. They were the avatars of nations. They were the razor-edged dreams of designers and pilots and leaders, forged in the white heat of global war. They pushed the boundaries of technology and dared men to fly faster than any human had flown before. In the end, only a few miles per hour separated these speed demons. Each mile was clawed out of the air with sweat and blood, and an almost reckless disregard for the limits of engines and airframes. Some didn't make it. Some arrived too late, but they all flew, and they all fought, and they all contributed to the massive leaps in aviation that defined the second half of the 20th century. Without the breakthroughs of World War II, the jet age might have been long delayed. So the next time you settle into an airliner seat or watch a fighter jet scream across the sky at an air show, take a moment to remember the men who kicked the piston engine into overdrive. Brave test pilots, brilliant engineers, and skilled manufacturing crews who had one goal in mind: to fly faster than anyone else in the world. They lived on the edge of the envelope, and they played for keeps. I hope you've enjoyed this look back at the speed demons of World War II. Let us know in the comments section which one you think is the ultimate piston-powered fighter. And join us next time as we dive into more of the fascinating stories behind the planes and pilots of the world's most devastating conflict. Thanks for watching.